When Colin Jost locked eyes with the Saturday Night Live camera and casually delivered a line that gutted Meghan Markle and Prince Harry's entire image, something shifted. This wasn't just late-night sarcasm, it was a public turning point. After years of towing the line, Hollywood finally crossed it. Meghan and Harry weren't being gently teased anymore, they were being roasted, ridiculed, and rebranded as walking contradictions. And it started with one savage joke. A joke that hit so hard, the live audience couldn't hold back. But that moment was just the beginning, because what followed wasn't just a comedy sketch, it was a cascade. A flood of jabs, punchlines, and brutal takedowns from stand-up comedians to animated parodies. Late-night monologues to award show gut, all aimed at two people who once claimed they just wanted privacy. And the most revealing part? The most humiliating clip didn't come from a comedian at all. It came from Prince Harry himself. On national television during a painfully awkward moment he clearly wasn't prepared for. It was short, it was raw, and it exposed something no PR statement ever could. But we'll get to that. Because to understand how Meghan and Harry went from global icons to comedic cannon fodder, we have to rewind to the moment the curtain finally dropped. Before we dive in, don't forget to like the video, subscribe, and drop a comment below. Do you think Meghan and Harry were ever truly misunderstood, or did the world simply stop buying what they were selling? It began like any other weekend update. Smirking anchors, canned news headlines, a few awkward chuckles from the crowd. But then, Colin Jost dropped the line. A one-sentence bomb wrapped in a trade deal punchline. President Trump announced a new trade deal with the UK. All they want in return is that we keep these two. The crowd erupted. But it wasn't just laughter, it was recognition. That rare moment when a joke doesn't just entertain, it confirms what everyone was already starting to feel. For years, Harry and Meghan had played the role of modern-day rebels, ditching tradition, challenging monarchy, becoming independent. But suddenly, the fairy tale had curdled. The glamour had worn off. And the public had questions. What do they actually do now? What are they even for? Jost didn't just make a joke. He drew a line in the sand. The message was clear. These two had cashed in their crowns for California, sunshine, and the world was no longer impressed, and the jokes kept coming. In the very next breath, Jost compared Harry's royal exit to Elon Musk's bizarre Twitter obsession. Elon built rockets. He's going to Mars. Why would he mess with Twitter? That's like a prince giving up everything just to marry an actress from Suits. It was devastating. Not because it was mean, but because it felt plausible. It framed their story not as a brave romantic escape, but as an impulsive career pivot that made less and less sense the more you thought about it. And SNL had been planting these seeds for years. Back when Harry and Meghan first got married, Jost's co-host Michael Che tossed out a one-liner that at the time felt like just another jab. Suits actress Meghan Markle married an unemployed dude who still lives with his grandma, but in hindsight it was prophetic. That unemployed dude image clung to Harry long after the wedding. It became a meme, a punchline, a perception they could never quite shake. So when news of a Suits spin-off began circulating, SNL couldn't resist. They imagined Meghan's character returning to the screen, only this time, juggling her legal career and taking care of an unemployed immigrant. The joke landed like a precision strike. It didn't just mock Harry, it mocked their entire brand. But SNL was just the warm-up act, because as their public image started to unravel, the comedy world pounced. And what began as late-night sarcasm quickly snowballed into a full-blown pop culture assault. And that was only the beginning. Because what came next hit them where it really hurt. Their multi-million-dollar Netflix deal. The moment the cameras cut to the Golden Globe stage and Joe Coy took the mic, no one expected that the biggest gut punch of the night would be aimed squarely at two people who weren't even in the room. Turns out, Prince Harry and Meghan Markle still get paid millions for doing absolutely nothing. Boom. In a room filled with screenwriters, directors, and actors who fight tooth and nail for every ounce of recognition, that line hit like a body slam. The laughter wasn't just about the joke, it was layered. A mix of disbelief, exhaustion, and maybe even a little resentment. Because, let's be honest, Harry and Meghan's Netflix deal had become a Hollywood punchline. Hundreds of millions. And what was there to show for it? One glossy documentary. A book tour, and endless headlines about everything except actual work. What began as a content partnership now looked more like a celebrity subsidy. A deal built on fame, not output. And in a town where what have you done lately is the unspoken rule, their silence was louder than any PR rollout. Trevor Noah, never one to miss a cultural beat, took that narrative and turned it into something personal. He imagined Meghan sitting across from Harry in their Montecito mansion, the illusion finally shattering. You need to get a job. That line, delivered with perfect comedic timing, was more than a joke, it was a mirror. A reflection of what many were starting to whisper. Had this whole new life been built on appearances? But the mockery was evolving. It was no longer just about laziness or deals. Comedians started aiming at something much more fragile. The very story Harry and Meghan had been selling since day one. The tale of heartbreak, racism, royal cruelty, the couple who had no choice but to flee until Jimmy Kimmel blew a hole right through it. On his show, he leaned into the contradiction that almost everyone was quietly thinking. Things must have been really bad at Buckingham Palace. If they came to America to get away from racism, the line was explosive, not because it denied their pain, but because it highlighted the irony, escaping to the US with its own ugly racial history as a safe haven. It sounded, at best, naive. At worst, performative. And Kimmel didn't stop there. With a smirk, he turned to the royals' public obsession with genetics and served up a line that was both savage and disarming. They should hope the kid looks more like Meghan. No offense, but Harry kind of looks like Screech. The audience laughed, and under the laughter, something broke. It was the beginning of a new era, one where their narrative of victimhood, once taken seriously, was now being treated like material, comedy material. That's when things got really uncomfortable, because the punchlines weren't just about money or irony anymore. They were now cutting into who Meghan and Harry were, or at least who they wanted the world to believe they were. And just when it seemed like they'd hit bottom, the comedians turned to the one thing the couple had tried hardest to protect, their personal bond. From romance to ridicule, when the brand became a meme when Meghan Markle revealed that she and Prince Harry refer to each other as M and H, it was meant to be endearing, a glimpse into their intimate private world. The kind of small, sweet detail that might humanize a royal couple turned global celebrities. But to Stephen Colbert, it was a comedic goldmine, and you'll say M, and he'll say H, and your friends say M, and it's just a thing. He leaned into the awkwardness, drew out the silence, raised an eyebrow like a sitcom dad trying to understand his teenager's TikTok slang. What could it be? A mystery for the ages? That moment didn't just land, it lingered, because suddenly, what was once painted as romantic began to feel curated, rehearsed. M and H didn't sound like organic affection anymore. It sounded like branding, and branding in the wrong hands always invites mockery. Cue Meghan's Netflix cooking series, a project that should have been safe, wholesome content. Instead, it backfired instantly. Whispers started to spread that she wasn't actually cooking, just artfully rearranging store-bought food into Pinterest-perfect scenes. It didn't matter whether it was true, the idea was enough. The perception had taken hold, and Jimmy Fallon, always waiting for the perfect setup, pounced. Why does Meghan Markle repackage pretzels? She takes them from one bag and puts them into another bag. The crowd was already laughing before he reached the punchline. The imagery of a duchess carefully moving snacks from branded packaging into mason jars was ridiculous and perfect. The theme was clear now: style over substance, form over function, and Meghan's entire public image, once carefully controlled, was now slipping out of her hands. But the most telling sign that things had gone sideways, it wasn't Fallon or Colbert, or even the SNL crew. It was her peers. Other celebrities, people who usually tiptoe around controversy, had started joining in. Casually on air, with cameras rolling, actress Rebel Wilson didn't hold back. When asked if Meghan had, of all things, ruined her yoga routine, yes, she has. The audience laughed. The host blinked in disbelief. And the explanation? She went to my yoga studio. Now everyone's gonna go there. It's ruined. It was ridiculous, and yet, somehow entirely believable in a world obsessed with celebrity proximity. The fact that someone could be annoyed just by sharing space with Meghan told you everything you needed to know about the public's shifting mood. It wasn't hate. It wasn't outrage. It was something subtler and deadlier: exhaustion. But as the late-night teasing turned into full-blown annoyance, stand-up comedians stepped onto the battlefield, and they didn't bring filters. They brought fire. And what happened next wasn't just brutal. It was personal. Because when stand-up legends took the mic, they weren't laughing with Meghan and Harry anymore. They were laughing at them, and they weren't holding back. The comedy gauntlet and the cartoon guillotine. By the time stand-up comics got their turn, Meghan and Harry weren't just the butt of jokes. They were a comedy genre, and nobody drew blood like Ricky Gervais. During a performance packed with Alistairs and rock legends, Gervais casually dropped a bomb. The kind of line that hits like an aftershock. Harry and William, Madonna, Paul McCartney, none of them paid a thing. He wasn't joking about money. He was mocking entitlement. The sense that royalty, even post-royalty, moves through the world untouched, unbothered, and always somehow above it all. And while Gervais skewered the fantasy of royal prestige, Others went for the jugular. John Mulaney, usually known for self-deprecating wit and awkward stories, shifted his tone completely when it came to Harry. His words landed with the kind of sharpness you don't expect from a guy in a cardigan. "You dumb ginger. You leave your title because you don't like your 94-year-old grandma," the crowd roared. Not because it was clever, but because it felt like someone finally said it out loud. The disbelief, the eye roll, the unspoken thought. Why not just wait it out? But that was nothing compared to Tim Dillon. If other comedians poked fun, Dillon came with a sledgehammer. Meghan, in his view, wasn't just annoying, she was the template for a self-important celebrity. If you pictured the most irritating, unbearable white woman, it's Meghan Markle, even though she's not white. The crowd laughed uncomfortably. But Dillon didn't blink. He doubled down, dragging her intelligence, background, and business ventures into one long, relentless takedown. You'd be stunned how dumb she is. Not because she's black, but because she's an actress who was on Suits. Every sentence pushed the line further. Dillon wasn't playing it safe. He was diagnosing what he saw as delusion framing. Her lifestyle brand as a thinly veiled attempt to talk down to the masses, while pretending to help. She thinks we're all animals, and she's saving us. With Jam and Honey, it was brutal, unfiltered, and, for many in the crowd, cathartic. But no critique carried more cultural weight than Chris Rock. He didn't shout, he didn't rant, he spoke slowly, deliberately, and that's what made it sting even more. He began by acknowledging something everyone already assumed. "I had no idea how racist the royal family was, but it's the royal family. They're the original racists." The crowd laughed because the premise felt obvious, but then Rock turned on the very idea that launched Meghan and Harry's media empire. He quoted the couple's bombshell claim that someone within the palace expressed concern over what their baby's skin tone might be. It was the emotional centerpiece of their Oprah interview, the moment that turned them into victims in the public eye, and Chris Rock torched it. That's not racism. Even black people want to know how brown the baby's gonna be. The reaction wasn't just laughter, it was disbelief. He had gone there and in doing so, shattered the careful framing that had protected Harry and Meghan for so long. But the final fatal blow didn't come from a comedian. It came from an entire episode of South Park, titled The Worldwide Privacy Tours. It tore through the Sussex saga like a wildfire through dry brush. The show didn't pull punches, it pulled the mask off completely. Harry's book became a prop. Their search for privacy became a punchline. In one scene, the cartoon version of the couple flies around the world in a private jet holding megaphones, screaming about their desire to be left alone. It wasn't subtle, it was savage. The script questioned everything from Meghan's alleged obsession with fame to Harry's confusion about his own role. In one scene, an interviewer flat out confronts them. "So, your wife has her own TV show, does fashion magazines, hangs with celebrities, but you want privacy." And Harry, in perfect cartoon cluelessness, shouts back, "My Instagram-loving wife has always wanted her privacy." The joke wrote itself, but the most iconic image came in the final moments. The couple, desperate for a normal life, finally finds a quiet town. It's peaceful, serene, empty, and instead of relief, they look lost, because maybe, deep down, they never wanted peace at all. They wanted applause. And for a moment, the audience, cartoon or not, saw that hypocrisy in HD. But South Park wasn't alone. Other shows like Family Guy jumped in too, turning Harry and Meghan into drive-by gags about laziness and greed. One skit imagined them casually lounging as a servant delivered bags of invisible cash. "Sir, your millions from Netflix." For no one knows what it was, cruel, condensed, and it stuck. Because by now, the Sussexes weren't controversial figures anymore. They were symbols. Symbols of a system where fame could be monetized, narratives could be manipulated, and consequences, for a while, could be dodged, but not forever. And the strangest part, the final blow didn't come from a cartoonist or a comic. It came from Harry himself, in a moment of unscripted awkwardness that said more than any punchline ever. Could what happened during that interview wasn't a joke? It wasn't a roast, it was real, and it revealed everything. When the mask slips and the truth stares back throughout all the mockery, the sketches, the cartoons, one thing remained clear. Harry and Meghan had always insisted their story was real. Their struggle was authentic. Their intentions were pure. But then came the Stephen Colbert interview, and a single moment that shattered that illusion more powerfully than any comedian ever could. It wasn't planned. It wasn't scripted. It wasn't even meant to air. And that's what made it unforgettable. Midway through their conversation, Colbert, trying to steer things toward reflection, offered Harry a quiet, thoughtful quote. A simple line with weight behind it. "Let us have an end to this debate about what makes a good man, and be one." There was a pause. the kind of silence that usually births sincerity. But Harry blinked. "Good knowledge," he muttered, with a half-laugh, brushing it off like someone skimming a fortune cookie. "You can use that." The energy in the room shifted. Colbert, usually quick with a comeback, held the pause. He seemed surprised, maybe even a little disappointed, because that line was more than a quote. It was a lifeline, a rare, public invitation for Harry to acknowledge something deeper, but he missed it, and that's when the real unraveling began. Later in the show, during a segment meant to be light and playful, something else happened. Something that wasn't part of the script but made everything else feel like it had been. As the cameras rolled, Harry muttered something under his breath. "That's the part we're editing out of this interview. Boy, right there." Colbert paused, caught off guard. Then Harry leaned in, trying to salvage the moment. "You're doing great. Oh, you're doing great." But his eyes told a different story. The smile was gone. The charm had evaporated. And for a split second, the real Harry appeared, defensive, tense, uncomfortable in his own skin. Like a man trying desperately to play a role that no longer fit. It wasn't a joke. It wasn't a skit. It was raw human discomfort, and it said more than any viral clip ever could, because this awkward, unresolved tension was the problem. For all their talk of truth, the Sussexes had spent years controlling the narrative, polishing every interview, curating every quote, fighting for privacy while launching claiming exhaustion while publishing memoirs, and when faced with an unscripted moment, the kind of moment that reveals authenticity or exposes performance, Harry blinked, the mask slipped, and in that silence, the world saw everything, because at the heart of this saga, beneath the glitter and titles and podcasts and interviews, there's a deeper truth. You cannot claim to reject the media while simultaneously living off its attention. You can't market vulnerability while dodging every opportunity to actually show it, and you can't demand to be taken seriously when your every word, every move, every product launch seems scripted for the next brand deal. That's why the laughter keeps echoing, not because people are cruel, but because the contradictions have grown too loud to ignore. But now comes the real question. The one Meghan and Harry can't edit out. Is there any move left that can rebuild what's been lost? Or has the world already made up its mind? The final act, can the curtain ever rise again? By now, the story of Meghan and Harry isn't just about a couple who left the royal family. It's about what happens when public trust runs dry, when the narrative you've built becomes indistinguishable from a brand. Once upon a time, they were hailed as brave. Two people defying centuries of royal tradition in pursuit of love, autonomy, and justice. They walked away from palaces and protocols, determined to write their own story. And for a moment they did. But somewhere along the way, authenticity gave way to optics. And the world noticed, from Netflix deals to podcasts, children's books to cooking shows. Everything started to feel curated, branded, pre-packaged for maximum emotional impact, but minimal depth. Even the most intimate details, the nicknames, the yoga classes, the private letters became part of the public-facing machine. Each move was another chapter in a story that no longer felt lived, but performed. And that's the danger with storytelling in the age of exposure. Because once people stop believing your words, once they start laughing instead of listening, it's almost impossible to win them back. The comedians weren't the architects of their downfall. They were the reflection of it. The laughter wasn't the cause, it was the verdict. And the final brutal truth. Meghan and Harry didn't get cancelled. They got commercialized. They became exactly what they once said they were running from. Tabloid fodder, social media spectacle, a rolling PR campaign with a royal twist. So where does that leave them now? In a strange place, not quite villains, not quite victims, just out there, drifting somewhere between relevance and ridicule. Still wealthy, still visible, but something more elusive. Credibility slipping further from reach, and the tragedy of it all. They could have been something else. Their platform could have elevated real causes, offered genuine healing, rewritten the rules of modern royalty, but instead, it became a stage. And now, as the audience files out and the spotlight fades, one question remains: can they ever step off the stage long enough to be taken seriously again? Or have the punchlines already written the ending? Before you go, we want to hear from you. Do you think Meghan and Harry can still rewrite their legacy, or is the world done listening? Like this video if you made it to the end, drop your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe for more deep dives like this one. We'll see you next time.